this in so long. What's up, family? My name is Cricket Smith, and welcome to Show and Tell Boston, where we talk about all things art, all things music, and all things. What's my line?
Boston.
Yeah, that. My name is Cricket Smith. Sorry, guys, I'm really sleepy. I have my beautiful, amazing co-host to the left of me. What's your name?
Tata.
Yay! And I have the lovely one and only Mashari. Period. To my beautiful right. My delicious Mashari. Ooh. Okay, and we have our beautiful friend here. May you introduce yourself?
My name is Freckles. I'm here on the show and tell for the first time, for the one time.
Hey.
Very
Excited to be
excited
here.
to have you. Yes, thank you for being here.
For the people who don't know, how do you describe yourself as an artist? How do you introduce yourself?
So basically, I'd introduce myself as an artist of many things. So, like, first and foremost, I'm somebody who, as an artist, I like to give recognition to others. I like to be free in my process. So Freckles basically is freedom, recognition, compassion, knowledge, love, support, music. Ooh. So in all of those aspects, I like to try to amplify that message alongside mental health, and basically trying to navigate different social barriers and issues and do that through my music as
Absolutely.
an artist. And also just connecting with people is a big part of like me being a part of the community, trying to connect with people and really work with people and having an understanding from more than one experience with them, you know, and really trying to get to know what the different pockets of community are, and like how do I like work in each of these areas with these different types of people, genres, groups, video, photo, like where do I fit in, you know? And I've been still trying to figure out how I fit in, you know?
Absolutely.
Well, I want to learn about this like artistic journey. One, the name Freckles. I was looking at you. I was like, okay, you actually have freckles. Right. So I thought that's how you got the name. But two, you're a multidisciplinary artist. But what genres do you practice specifically?
So my first home, my home base, with genre would be alternative, like indie, acoustic. Like I started playing acoustic guitar from when I was very young, as like 5 years old, just messing around, just self-taught. My uncle, my adoptive mother's family is from Arizona. My Uncle John, he put a guitar in my hand. And so that's like where it started. And then like I used to like to mess around on harmonicas when I was a kid, running around with a harmonica all the time. And it was just playful. It was always playful. And then, you know, I was really into like the Fray and like
I love the Fray.
Jack's Mannequin, Panic at the Disco,
Yes.
Avril Lavigne, Blink 182, Sum 41, all these like Nirvana, all that stuff when I was young. But I also had such a love for hip hop, but I was very shy about that.
Shy about what? Loving hip hop or rock music?
Loving hip hop because it wasn't known in my household. You know, growing up interracially adopted with like my adoptive family. My mom and dad were both white, and so like growing up, there wasn't really that like knowledge of that, push of that. I got a lot of that from being around my cousins. So my aunt and my adoptive family also was a foster parent. So growing up, I had cousins who were Cape Verde, Laos, Cambodian, and like we had a really like mixture of like cousins and stuff, like very different. And they lived in the Cape and stuff. So I spent a lot of summers in the Cape as a kid. And that's where I got all the hip hop. Me and my cousins were listening to like 3 6 Mafia. We was listening to like
I was doing listening to 3 6 Mafia.
we was listening to all crazy kind of stuff. We was like making MySpaces and
being
like,
bad and grown.
Yeah, like we
Grown
wasn't
and bad.
it wasn't supposed to be out on the MySpace and all that. But I really had a big love for like Missy Elliott, Sierra. I love Janet Jackson. I really love Janet Jackson. I was into weird stuff because my parents were much older. For generational wise, as parents, my dad was born in 1938.
Whoa!
My adoptive father.
What?
And he was in his 50s when he adopted me.
That's
crazy. And my mom, we won't say that. But she's 30 again this year.
She turned 30.
We the same age. And so, but yeah, there's a different generational gap there. And so I listened to a lot of Simon Garfunkel, like classical rock and stuff like that. It was always around me. But when I got out into school and stuff and with my friends, we was listening to everything. Like we was in high school, it was like the era of like Rack City. And like, and like,
Okay.
and like, look, ma, no hands.
Okay.
Do it with no hands.
What year did you graduate?
I graduated 2012.
Okay. I graduated 2011. Okay, so yeah,
Well,
we was on the
actually-
same.
2011s.
Okay,
Let's
period.
go.
Actually, like a little plot twist. 2012, I didn't actually walk. 40 days of my graduation, I was incarcerated.
Whoa. You was about to keep going too. No, we gotta unpack that.
Yeah, we gotta pack all this.
You was yeah.
I
let
was
me,
I
go
was
ahead,
I
go
was
ahead.
incarcerated. So let's bring it back to like the mental health.
Okay.
So when I was young, like I had a lot of behavioral issues growing up in the home. Like, you know, my parents put me in probably everything you could probably put me in, blessed me with, you know. The reason why I know how to, you know, I do gymnastics. You asked me multidisciplinary, I can do gymnastics. I used to do gymnastics from ages 3 up until like 5th grade. I was in Taekwondo. I was on travel softball teams, basketball, soccer. I was on the travel softball teams until I was 18U. I had scholarships for high school to play D2.
Don't you sculpt too? Or
Yeah,
visual art.
Visual art. That started later on when I was getting into my recovery healing journey after my dad had passed, because I wanted to reconnect with that. My dad's the one who actually taught me how to woodwork and do carpentry work. He was a contractor, so shout out to Dad. So like all this stuff. So bring it back. The mental health, it was for me, I had a lot of behavioral issues as a kid, but with being adopted, one of the things I want to highlight is that not all of us have the blessing of knowing what our medical history is, or the blessing of knowing what our mental health background is, or where we come from, or what our family history is. So going to doctor's appointments and stuff, growing up and stuff, there was no history.
What's your ethnicity?
I am black and white, so English, Irish, and when I did my Ancestry.com, West African, so from the Congo, Ghana, and Nigerian.
What was it like kind of growing up with just Caucasian parents?
Growing up, it was difficult for both of us, you know?
It's also a Caucasian town, too.
Yeah, Dracut, Massachusetts. Dracut, Massachusetts is where I lived, but I went to Catholic schools in Methuen, pre-K, and also in Lowell. So I was in Catholic schools in pre-K and Lowell, switched to Methuen for kindergarten through 4th grade, and then 5th grade went back to Lowell Catholic schools. And then 8th grade went to Dracut High School. So it was a lot of different stuff. And so like the Catholic schools, God bless my parents for putting me in private schools, but at the same time there was so much with the identity piece. Also discovering my sexuality, my gender, and like not even knowing what that was yet at those ages, but knowing that I felt different.
Right.
You know, so the conversation's gonna bounce around a little bit
Let's
because
go.
you know, it all kind of ties into each other. Right. But then growing up with all of these like the experiences growing up with my parents being white, like for me, I was angry as fuck.
Were you the only child?
Yes. My brother, who's 8 years older than me, he was removed from the home due to just like different circumstances.
Was he the biological child?
Not biological to me. Adopted as well.
Okay.
Also biracial. So it was just me and him when I was young, and then when I was around 4 or 5 years old, he was removed from the home. There was some behavioral issues, so you know that had significantly impacted me, and there was just some stuff that had to happen. And so growing up, I was treated like the baby, and that's, you know, my parents maybe had done a lot for me stability wise when it came to a roof, to get me to school, feeding me, all that stuff, but I still really emotionally struggled, like immensely with my identity, with connecting, feeling, because it's very much old school. They were old school. They wasn't talking about, oh, let's talk about emotions.
Right.
It was like, suck it up,
Right.
figure it out. You know what I mean? That's not my problem, you know? And I discovered later on a lot of like what those behavioral issues were as an adult. So as a kid, there was nothing to really map off of except some social work documents that my mom had submitted of her mental health history. We don't even know if it was true because she was active in her substance abuse. And so there was a lot of question marks for me all the way up until about 16. I ran the freshman race at Franklin Park.
Nice.
And for the MVCs, and I came in first.
Yay.
And that's how my mother found me.
No.
That's how my biological mother found me.
Oh, wow.
What?
Yeah, so she found me because I was in the Boston Globe, and she saw my name, and she saw a picture of me. And she added me on Facebook, and so I was in high school. And at that time, I thought that was the aha moment. Like, I got all my answers now, right?
Yeah.
And now y'all, because I was angry as hell because they had no answers for me, you know? So as soon as I got whatever she had to give me, I ate it up, and it was like anger.
What age was that, though?
16.
16?
Going into 17. And it was like, developmentally at that age, your executive functioning ain't, your decision making, you just think you know everything.
Come on.
Yeah.
Like
You know,
jelly.
you really do think that you know everything. That, you know, and I was an honorable AP student in school as well.
Oh, wow.
So like my parents, as long as my grades were good and as long as I showed up to practice, as long as I had my travel sports, as long as I was doing those things, I pretty much flew under the radar with them. But I heavily struggled with relationships in school. I was in the closet, you know.
I was gonna say, before 17, before that happening, like, what was the struggles and issues that you were facing from, like, say, elementary school to 17? Like, what were?
So basically, just like feeling like, well, it's hard to like say because I had a very poor interactions with a family member that had harmed me, and so the behavior issue stemmed from abuse. And so coming to try to understand that, and then also the identity piece of struggling to look people in the face and feel resemblance, feel like I am you, you are me, I look like you, you are my family. There was a lot, and like I used to get bullied at school for my parents looking like my grandparents or my parents looking old. You know, and people make fun of me. I went to my 10-year high school reunion a couple years ago. Someone's like, yo, your grandfather was a great guy. And I'm like, that was my dad, bro.
Oh, damn.
Still happening, you know? And it's like, just shows me that people never really paid attention, you know? And I really was always just like a sociable person in school. You know, I could wear that mask, you know what I mean? Because I hid my sexuality, you know what I mean? I definitely didn't want to be found out as a lesbian at the time because in 2010, 2011, they had the Gay Straight Alliance in high school. And you were part of that. You had a target on your back.
Oh, yeah,
You know what I'm saying? That was not going to fly. And also being raised Catholic, I didn't really have if my parents were going to accept me or not. You know, and then the religious factor, trauma, that factor, and then always feeling like, is there a God that loves me? You know? Why me? Why do I feel like this inside? You know? And I toiled with that for a long time on top of like just struggling to maintain friendships and relationships due to things that happened to me, you know, as a kid, you know. So not being able to have like I was like, because of also being an only child and my parents giving me whatever to basically try to harness that emotional outburst. Whatever. You want to go, let's go. You know what I mean? You want this, let's go. You know what I mean? But that didn't help anything. That just was like a temporary fix. I needed and like I wasn't about therapy either. I did play in expressive therapy as a child, but you know, once I got to my teenagers years, I got very frustrated because most therapists during that time are white women. And they're trying to connect to me, and it just reminded me of some, like, I'm just like at home. You're not understanding. You're not understanding that girls make fun of my hair. You're not understanding that I'm like, people are treating me different, and we don't talk about that. And that's, I feel like, what hurt me more. I mean, I obviously had my family that was mixed, like with different family members and stuff, but we never talked about the people making the looks at the doctor's office. We never talked about all that stuff. And that was a lot of what caused a lot of behavioral outbursts too, because I could feel it, and they would feel it, but they wouldn't talk about it.
We had a panel once where we had a mixed panel. And one of the girls was like, she was a biracial girl, and she was raised by just her Caucasian mother in a Caucasian like neighborhood. And the way she grew up, the way that she was made fun of, and when she had like self-hate, she was like, I don't think mixed kids should exist. You know what I mean? But that's like, but it affects everyone differently. You know what I mean?
So let's run it back to Bio Mom. In the 90s, bro, having mixed kids was still a thing. Like, and fast forward to like 2 years ago, I got into a situation that re-triggered some of that trauma from, I got assaulted by males and physically, and I had to go to a violence recovery program, and it re-triggered this stuff from when I was a kid. So I came at my mom for things about my brother, and that ended up leading me to request my DCF records, which unraveled more truths. And in the 90s, my mom was definitely fearful of probably what people thought. I have other half siblings as well. We all have different fathers. I'm still the youngest. But there was probably some fear about, okay, how I was the only, and I still am the only mixed race kid. And my father is still nowhere to be found. I mean, he exists. I've met him, but he's still nowhere to be found. And so, that cultural identity piece, I longed for that as a kid. I used to look black men in the face and wonder, like, could it be him? You know what I mean? Like, I used to get jealous of other black families that where you come from. Used to hurt. And then it wasn't until I was 17 and I went into behind MCI Framingham, and the beautifulest black woman took me in as a 17-year-old kid and taught me how to do laundry, how to cook, how to take care of my hair, And that experience, that 4-year experience, wasn't like, oh, you just went to prison and you came out and you were all different and a thug, and how all these behaviors definitely put me through some things. But I went in there and I got educated. I started my Boston University degree there. I was in the dog program. I did a women's recovery program. I did houses of healing. And at that time, a lot of that was trying to figure out how to repair the relationship with my mom and my dad. And while I was locked up, my adoptive mother had breast cancer. And that was the first time that my biological mom reached out to me by mail during her sobriety journey. Whoa. And I used to give the letters that she would send to me to the girl I dated at the time in prison, and not open them. And she said, I'll give them to you, when you get released, and you can decide, then if you want to read them. Right. So there was a very large gap between me really addressing the pain from my birth mom being absent. And that, bringing back to mental health, is attachment. Yeah. The first form of trauma was detachment of the mom. Right. My mom. Right. Your mom hold you when you was born?
I hope so.
You know what I mean? So it's like,
Mom, did you hold me?
You know what I mean? So, but like, some of this stuff is really nurturing, like nurture versus nature, and So it's like, for me to understand myself and like how like, I respond to certain things like affection and touch and just certain things, man. Like, it goes really all the way back to certain things, and I had to rediscover what those things were through more healthy relationships, making healthy connections, rediscovering where to find community, how to talk about my sense of self around safe people, how to figure out, okay, this is for me, this ain't for me, and then maybe one day I like this, maybe one day I don't like this, and being okay with trying out new things, because even with like coming out as trans, like, you know, I expected the whole world to be against me, and I mean, I think it is at this point. But
yeah, right now.
but you know, it was the best thing I ever did, and it did to reaffirm what was going on. And it's funny because when I came out as trans, I had no idea about any of my biological father's side of my family.
Wait, where in the spectrum is this? Like, is this before?
This
17?
is after 17.
After
This is
17?
after I get released.
Okay.
So after I got released from Framingham in end of 2015. So that's what I mean.
That's like at age 21.
Age 21. Yeah, okay. Yeah. So I got denied parole.
Wait, can we ask? Wait,
Yeah,
can we
yeah,
can we take a deep breath? Because that was a lot.
I know. I'm sorry, bro. Yeah,
Please don't apologize.
I don't mean to but it's like my brain. You gotta pause me.
Yeah, right.
It's a lot of information.
It's a lot of information.
Yeah, so I don't mean to rush if you guys feel like I'm rushing.
You're not rushing. I just want to be able to
go ahead. You guys chime in.
Process because I'm an ADHDer severe, and I want to be able to understand you. Cause I met you before, maybe like 2017, and I liked you, and I haven't seen you since then. You know, so and I always thought like, where's Freckles? Like, you know what I mean? What is he doing? Like, I want to see him again. He was so cool. But this is the first time since 2017 that I've actually physically seen you in form. You're real.
Yeah, I exist.
But
I exist.
I want to take a deep breath, like collectively, like 3 deep, long ones, because like you've been through a lot of stuff.
Yeah,
like a lot of stuff.
Yeah,
like
and it's like, how do you start to explain to somebody like any of that? Sometimes, you know,
right? Like, what's the landmark? Like, what is that thing that happened in your life that sets the landmarks for?
But you can go ahead, ask about whatever.
Because it does feel like. Have you seen those detective boards? And I'm just piecing everything through the yarn.
Yes.
It's like, yeah.
So basically, it's like I'm trying to bring you from like childhood, adolescent, like early young adult 20s, and then to now.
I get it. I do get it. But I want to ask you the first time in your life, regardless if it was after prison, during prison, or you know, while you were still in adolescence, like, when was the first time that you ever felt like safe, like mentally, spiritually, emotionally, like all at one time? Have you ever?
Oh.
Ooh, so like that's a really good question because there has been some scary times where I thought that the worst was gonna happen, and I was in the best possible place that I could have been. I just want to pick one. I want to pick the right one.
You got to, no rush.
I'd have to say the day that I actually recognized where my mom was buried. Yeah, that was the best day for me. I felt like the most safe and spiritually woke at that time. Like, I think it was the first time I could actually acknowledge my birth mother's energy being in my presence. You know what I mean? Like, after her being gone. Like I always felt like there was something on me nudging me, but it was the first time I could actually feel that that's what that is. You know what I mean? Like, there's something that talks to me sometimes, but I'm like, whatever, you know? But it was her coming to me and giving me her embrace. And that was the first time I really felt like, wow, like, I feel you, I get you, I understand you, I feel safe. I feel understood, even if it wasn't physically with her, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Also, on the stage. On the stage.
On stage. Give it up for the stage.
On the stage. That's the safest place for me to be.
Absolutely.
Because I can be myself.
That's right.
I also wanted to get into that journey too, because I think I listened to an interview where you said you didn't really start performing until after, like, after the incarceration.
Yeah.
And then, like, what was the first time performing, and what were those feelings? What was that energy? And then when did you start feeling like, okay, this is where I belong? Or was it just right then and there?
So when I first started doing acoustic sets in 2016 in Lowell, because I came out and I had probation in Lowell, so I was there as court ordered to therapy. I thought that was the worst thing in the world. Womp womp. You know what I mean? That was the worst, bro. What you mean? I'll pick up trash. I'll do anything. Don't make me go talk to somebody. You know what I mean? What the heck? I've been doing that since I was 5.
Yeah.
You kidding me? That ain't gonna help me. Work. I need money. You know? That's all I cared about. And my mom was trying to make me go back to school because once you got out, you have to apply for BU to get back in. Because the credits, to get your credits from the prison. So she was pushing me, trying to get me to do Middlesex Community College in Lowell. And I was just like, nah, child. I was like, I'm going to be a supervisor at Savers, yo.
Please.
Yo, like, I was like, yo, does anybody know about this store called Savers, bro? Because, like, I came out of prison, I thought that was a gold mine. You know? I was like, yo, ain't nobody wore this? You know, and my mom as a kid, you couldn't get me to go in a thrift store to save my life. I was so spoiled. You know, but repeat yourself one more time.
Yeah, he asked like 4 questions in one.
I did.
You did.
When you were coming out and then you were getting on stage.
The show. Okay, so I was doing the therapist, bro. I went to the therapist. I walk in his office first time. His whole office is full of all these instruments from around the world, right? And I don't know where any of them are. So, but he tells me that, and then he tells me that he was an ex-convict. So I'm like, yo. So my guard be down now, and I'm like, okay, therapist. You know what I mean? And he was like, what do you do? You know what I mean? Like, he already knew I wasn't interested. And he kind of played me to me, you know? And he beat me to me because he knew me, because he was me. So that was the best thing that ever happened to me. He was the first therapist I ever connected with. And he had told me that if I brought my guitar one session, and I played him a song. He said, if you keep doing that, you're going to be at the coffee shop down the street. So next thing you know, 6 months goes by, still trying to figure out. I just got out. I had flown to California to meet my half-brother, and my therapist told me, old places, old things you gotta get rid of. So I was like, I need a new guitar. So I went all the way to California to get a new guitar and meet my half-brother that I never spent time with before, my blood half-brother. And then I come back, and the first show that I played down the street was at Brood Awakening in Lowell. And the first show was the day that I met my biological father.
Wow. Dang, that's crazy.
So during that 6 months, I wrote a song during June for my adoptive father for Father's Day, but it was like about my not knowing who my real father was at the same time. So I was like, I want to know my father. What type of man is he? Did he sit on Sundays to read the paper? Does he sit and think about the world and where I could be? But then at the end of the song, it's like, I know I have a father that gives a damn about me, and it's my dad who raised me. So, you know, that was the beginning of the journey, and like, I started playing those songs, those original songs, my pain songs, like my bedroom songs, you know, and then I started coming down to Boston over Dorchester Center, like Pat's Pizza, Chocolate Factory, Mattapan. I lived right there on Washington Street, and me and my friends started throwing these little like house things and DJs, and I started getting into doing freestyling, but I'm not a good freestyler, but they started teaching me how to count bars at that time, and they would we go around in a circle, they throw a word up, and somebody have to use the next word, so they spit, throw a word up, then the next person has to grab the word, spit, you know, and we would just do that for fun. We called ourselves, we would just sit on the porch, we was drinking port, being stupid.
Hell yeah.
Stupid.
Gotta have the port.
You know, and so then I found Dorchester Art Project at that time.
Hey, shout out to Dorchester Art Project. You made me so bad.
Hey, you know it.
Yeah, shout out Sam.
Hey, shout out Sam.
Yes.
Yeah, yo. And that's when I met Amanda Shea at that time.
Let's go.
She was
Shout out Amanda
hosting.
Shea.
She was hosting at that time. I think Washam was DJing at that spot.
Shit. Shout out Washam. Yeah.
And I was just so new, and I was just so I was still such a shell of a human, and just really sporadic, and didn't even really know what I wanted to do with music. I just knew that it was new to me, and I was really shy about it.
How'd you feel about coming into the Boston art scene? Like coming from Drake, coming from Lowell, how that feel?
I felt like not welcome.
Whoa, why?
That's Boston for you.
Like not.
Can you tell me a little bit about Drake? It.
So-
I have what if I was to go there? What would I? First, what was your experience?
It's probably a lot different now. They probably sell a lot of homes to like middle-aged, like 30-year-olds who trying to start families.
Is
But
it
it's-
north of Boston or south?
So it's like right next to like Lawrence.
Okay.
And Methuen.
Okay.
So it's there's a lot of like older people there. It's very towny. It's like a Rotary Club.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Got it.
By the time I got out of prison, the high school was rebuilt. Like, but when I was there, it wasn't as like fancy, you know. But
There wasn't a lot of melanin there, right?
no, it was like shout out Joker Hugu. That's my guy since Catholic school days. You know, people used to say, you know, and like I learned in I took my master's. I started a master's before I started to do the album, and I found out about that's what reconfirmed that my childhood was kind of like I started to realize that the things people did weren't right. Because when I took my master's program, I started learning about microaggressions and like saying things like Oreo ain't cute and like saying things like hybrid ain't cute. And like calling me things in school or making like the N-word jokes and like, you know, white kids saying that stuff and saying that stuff to me and like me just laughing along because like me not knowing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so there was some of that like blindness in me as a kid because I didn't know. I didn't know any better like that. I wasn't supposed to laugh at that stuff. You know what I mean? And I didn't want to be targeted. So I was just like going along with it type thing. But I had like my friend from Lebanon that I grew up with.
Woo,
too.
yes.
Matt Gaban, shout out him. He's an amazing artist. And so like we kind of mingled the Catholic school kids together, and we kind of integrated a little bit with public school kids. But we mostly, like in the beginning of freshman and sophomore year, stuck to our little crews. But by junior, senior year, we were all in different friend groups. You know what I mean? So I didn't have that support system moving through, you know. But the kids at school, like, they praised me for being good at sports, you know what I mean, for being popular in that way. But they knew I had home stuff. You know, every year in high school, I ended up, like, inpatient, you know, until my senior year I was incarcerated, you know. Like, it progressively got worse, like, the behavioral stuff, lashing out at home, running away and stuff like that, and I really truly believe it all came from like because I didn't know where I came from.
Absolutely, it'll drive a person crazy,
and not because it's my parents' fault. You know what I mean? Not because they didn't like love me or show me unconditional love, but because there was no answers, and I was just getting. I would just be. You could tell me that the sky was freaking blue, and I wouldn't believe you. You know what I mean? If we were my mom and dad, you know what I mean? And so I didn't have any respect at 17 for myself when it came to acting out in that way, until like, you know, I got around people who also didn't care about themselves.
right?
And then that's what wound me up in a whole world of hurt. So 40 days my graduation, like a little bit before that, and I had gotten into a car accident, and somebody almost lost their life.
Ooh,
You know what I mean? And that was the biggest wake-up call ever.
was this before prison or after?
Before.
And then after that, you went to prison.
Yeah.
Wait, for that?
For that, yeah.
You that's what you describe as like that's the crash out that you had? Okay.
Crash out.
Yeah.
Literal crash out.
Okay.
It's not a joke. Yeah, like so like I literally crashed out. And so like that changed everything. Like I didn't even really know anything. I'd never been in trouble, nothing, like never been arrested like that, nothing. And like my parents never dealt with anything like that. And the little district court made a complete smoke show out of me. They made a sole example, because when I had actually entered into the facility, people were like, "Why are you here? You're 17."
in a grown folks' place.
Yeah,
in an adult
it was
facility.
a state facility.
Oh my!
And they were like, "Why are you here?" So a couple of women over time had looked at my case and they're like, "You got smoked. You should have never did this. Like, why did you accept a plea deal?" I was like, "I don't know what that is. I was a court appointed. I was 17, never been in trouble. I didn't even know my rights. They threw out my statements. What do you mean? Y'all grew up in black families, right? What did they teach you? They didn't teach me that. I didn't even know that. Like that was important to me to know, to have to know how to act around law enforcement or how to be, you know. I did not have that instruction.
Yeah.
And that instruction has fucked me up a lot. And even now that I present as male, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Oh, wow. You would believe the type of treatment that can come to a black man. You know? Forget about it, dude. You know? It's completely, I've lived both, you know, spectrums of it. Like, I had to survive in a body that wasn't for me in comfortability for 20 years. So, like, one piece of, like, the mental health and, like, the gender identity and stuff is, like, LGBT people in general, gay, lesbian, they don't get to actually develop as themselves until they come out. They're not being their full form of self. So people who are cisgendered or you know, straight and heterosexual, they're off bat, they out. They ready to go. They know who they want to like, who they don't want to like. People who are in the LGBT queer community, when they're coming out, it's like a whole new sense of self. It's like, hey, I'm actually showing up every day being honest. I'm looking at like heterosexual people automatically get that right from jump. Yeah.
Let me ask you this, because we're gonna take a break soon, but I want to ask you, like, what did you expect? Because you said you asked us, like, you grew up in black families, right? Like, your parents taught you your rights.
No, I'm saying y'all got to.
Right. But for me, okay, what did
that's
you
my
think?
That's my perception.
Right.
That's my perception. I'm not saying that's to be fact.
Right. So what was your perspective of black families as a child?
As a child?
Yeah.
I felt like black families as like a child, they were like more like together. Like there was more like togetherness. Like there was more music. There was more like even for example, like my cousins going down and hanging in the Cape with my cousins, like they just did more together. You know what I mean? Like it felt like they were always together. Big family parties, like big events, big food gatherings, big everything. You know, loud and like you can, and everybody, like my uncle, like, cause my cousins married like into black families, you know what I mean? So like my cousins' actual uncles, they feel like my uncles too, but they're my first cousins because of the age gaps. You know what I mean? So I have nephews and nieces that are older than me because of my adoption. So it's like, but for me, my second cousins, their aunts and uncles felt like my aunts and uncles too, but they're my first cousins, you know? So like that piece and them being of color, like being around them made me want to be around that more. I felt more connected to it. I don't know why, but I felt like I didn't have to, like, I didn't feel like eyes were on me. You know what I mean? All the time. Cause like going out to eat and it's me and my mom and my dad. Yeah. Okay, like how did this happen? Right. You know what I mean? That's the type of stuff. You know what I mean? And or where's your mom? At the store. I'm in the store and she's standing right next to me. What are you talking about? This is my mom right here. That kind of stuff. So I felt like it was more like I felt there was no like misconception. Like you knew who you was with, and you like with black people, like, you know what I mean? They're always together. They know who their people are. You know what I mean? Like it's more like tight knit. It's more together. Like me and my family, maybe because of like the adoption thing, like we were together, but I feel like there's more like communalness, and you know what I mean. Absolutely. Like there's more like communal, like people like wanting to come together more. Like I don't know, it just felt more rich.
Okay, thank you for that perspective. I want to pick up on that I want to pick up where we left off when we get back. We're gonna take a little break.
Sometimes you gotta take a ride solo. Sometimes
not scared to dream in the daylight. Sunrise, stand tall, life's best. Yeah, I've been through it all. The rough and the mess, but I'm still smooth around the edge. Stars in the stripes, fluorescent lights. Yeah, it must be nice once it's all done with and left for dead. Words once in a while have me discontent. Laying in my bed praying cycles don't come again.
Episode of Show and Tell Boston, where we have my beautiful and amazing friend Freckles here. Okay, Freckles, I want to talk about your album and the other things we get into before this interview is over. But I asked about like your perspective of family because I didn't meet my biological father till I was like 21, right? I was sitting on a couch just like this watching TV and I got a phone call out of the blue. I'm gonna talk fast because we're got a little bit of time crunch. So, and it was super out of the blue. Now, growing up, I had two fathers, right? I had my biological father. I had my stepdad who's white, and been my stepdad since I was like 7 years old. And I had who I thought was my dad, right? So I have a sister who's 5 years younger than me, and my sister's name is Erin, and my dad's name is Irvin. And after my parents got divorced, I would go with my sister, when parents split up, like you go get time with them, right? And it wasn't until one day somebody was like, and I'm from the South, right? Super, super, super country. And I remember one day somebody was like, Aaron, you look just like Irvin. And I was thinking to myself, like, why don't they say that I look like him? Right? And it wasn't until like that day that I realized that my dad wasn't my dad. Like it was never a conversation. And we don't even really talk about it now. Like he knows that I know, and I know that he knows, but the only thing that doesn't make me his daughter is my stepmom, his wife. Because I'm not biologically his, she doesn't see me, right? To her, I don't exist. And my sister and I were like 5 years younger, and I'm like, and it feels like I'm adopted almost. But to my sister, I'm like, Aaron, how are we whole sisters and half sisters at the same time?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's a really interesting perspective.
No, and that's why I'm happy you said it, because it is too, like, it was like my perception at the time. It was like that was better.
Yeah.
Because I didn't feel my sense of belonging.
Yep.
But I did have family. You know what I mean?
Right.
It was just I didn't feel like I fit in.
I know what you mean. Right.
But I was definitely loved by
Absolutely.
my family. I was difficult though. You know, as a kid, it was really like off the wall. Really like oppositional behaviors, all that. So, but that takes into, the reason why I stated the prison journey and stuff is because of I have a single coming out called Tragic.
Let's go.
And shout out to Bill for being here with me today, supporting me. Aperture Studios is going to be shooting
he's great.
the video. And the whole song kind of stemmed from a relationship that I had while I was incarcerated, and kind of like the treatment I underwent and the manipulation and just kind of like the grooming. And I was very much younger, and I just like would love hard. Like, if she told me to jump, I'd jump. If she told me that this was true and this was false, I'd believe her. And then it got to a point where I started to learn how to move in there. And then it got to be like kind of a turf war for a bit. And then it started to jeopardize me in ways like when I got out on parole originally, I ended up taking my own parole, going back to prison to be with this woman. And that's how young-minded. I just did not understand that, you have your freedom. You have your life, bro. And I was just so caught up on thinking that this person was really for me. But they were just ultimately using me and using my family's money and some more stuff, because I was just getting out of prison at 21 years old, no job history like that and stuff, just like not some education from prison, you know what I mean, and working my way back to communities. So song Tragic is really deeply rooted in that relationship dynamic, and it explores like negative thought processes, and I kind of we reconstructed, and we did a lot of treatment to this project, and we structured it around being able to, like, we've had a little bit side conversation about letting go, and some of these mindsets that we have, they keep us locked in, they keep us locked down, they keep us from being able to see. And so songs like Tragic remind me to not succumb to other people's opinions, thoughts, and like things about me, and being able to destroy that and make my own. How do you feel about you today, Christian? You know what I mean? Like, where are you at with you? Like, where other people are at with me, we work on that as a collaboration, but for me, it's me versus me. And so at the end of the day, this song was like everything. It reconnected me, like I was explaining to Cricket before, like, I learned how to sew in prison. That's where I was a seamstress in there. I would call myself a seamster now. But I learned how to sew there. So for the project, I like wanted to sew my own outfits for it. I wanted, so yeah.
Awesome.
So Tragic has all this stuff, and it's the pinnacle of post traumatic growth. It's the thing that started it. And so it had me dive back into prop making, building, getting reconnected with my father in that way. It had me dive into looking at myself in my recovery journey and connecting with people like Exit Fame, and brother I've been at, we butt heads, we've been brothers, we all that, and it's having somebody like that knows what that's like, and coming out of like ego, coming out of all these different like pre-made thoughts that no one else is thinking, that it's just you, bro. And being able to navigate that in my album, and then also like how my old relationship and how that trauma from Tragic has poured into my most recent relationship that I have just have gotten out of, and how not healing certain pieces of yourself can really transference is a real thing. And you know you know being able to recognize all these different things with getting almost 18 months underneath my belt, like with regaining, like being able to process information and receive people and not want to feel closed off because I'm feeling so much, or these emotions, I don't know how to identify them or where they belong and why I'm feeling them, and that other people's are also sensitive to me, and I don't want to, you know what I mean? I don't want to offset anybody else's energy or what, because I'm trying to figure it out, and I'm trying to figure it out. And that's what post-traumatic growth is about. And I had a lot of spiritual experiences because I was on the road while creating the songs, and God put me in places, real places. There was a time when I was planned a show in January, and then I get to the show in Houston in July, and there's a hurricane. I even went through a situation where I was in New York, most recently for my December live band show, and the Airbnb I stayed at, the woman was there with her child right before Christmas, and she's looking for places to get help for her recovery. And I could stay there, and then, me and this kid are just sitting on the couch playing Roblox, and her mom starts sharing like her suicidal ideation thoughts with me and what she's been going through with her recovery. And it kind of just like every time I pushed myself to get to a certain place with the music, I met somebody that I needed to be with. God put me with somebody that I needed to be with, and reassure me that there's a reason why I'm making this music. There's a reason why the message is there. And looking at her daughter, she was very similar to me. Her mom went up to her and was like, "Oh, you need to like, get dressed or whatever." And then her mom was trying to pick out clothes, and she's like, "That's too girly. I won't wear that." You know what I mean? And so her mom started talking to me, and we start and I was like, she could be whatever. You know what I mean? She's just figuring it out. Like, we don't do that in the LGBT community. We don't project what we want kids to be like and what they should like and not like. That's a big one. We just let kids be. And I think everybody should just let kids be. But, the album is also to touch into nostalgic points of my childhood and the sound in general, like alternative pop punk. Like I grew up doing that. And so it's just bringing me all the way back to that inner thing where I'm trying to reconnect and have those positive, healthy experiences in relationships, and redo that because, you know, I might have like got locked up at 17, but there was a lot of times as a kid where I was active. My parents did a lot with me, but I didn't get to do things that I wanted to do. You know, I always told my parents I wanted to be a rock star, and they was like, no. You know, they thought it was just a hobby in my room. You know, and I'm dreaming about this thing every single day. But then, so to make up for that, you know, in my day job, I do the inpatient psychiatric work, and I work with kids. But the music and all that creative stuff goes, and from being institutionalized, all that stuff goes right hand in hand with the work that I do, and how I work and help kids build skills. You know, because we didn't have anything to make things up, so we gotta make things out of nothing. You know, when we was in there chefing stuff up out of nothing, making stuff up out of nothing. These kids are in here making beautiful art out of nothing, and they're sitting in there dealing, emotionally regulating, dealing with their pain, and that job has taught me a lot too of how quickly and where I want to be and what type of person I want to be, because I want to be able to be a voice for the younger generation, you know. And
Can I ask from your situation that you were in the in that relationship, what advice would you give somebody, either A, that's in it and can't really see it, but probably has like a idea that something's like off about this, and what advice would you give like your former self of like, this relationship is toxic, and how would you be able to receive like those reflections that create the song Tragic like earlier?
not needing so much validation and approval, you know, of somebody else, like needing to feel something from something else, like essentially like feeling like love from someone else, or feeling happiness from someone else, or like I gotta be able to feel that for me. Like I gotta create happiness for me. I gotta create love for myself. And I wish I knew at the time that I was falling so hard and loving so hard and doing all these things for another person, that I would just turn around and do it for myself. Like literally, like I'm still learning how to do that right now. You know what I mean? And letting go is still part of it. And I think it's because it was a layered experience. Like it wasn't just falling in love in a prison situation. It was like also very like specific times of my development. So I would have thought that was like gonna be my only relationship if you asked me at that age. You know what I mean? And then now as an adult, I wish that like young individuals would more focus on figuring about what they like about themselves, and not who they want to like and who they want to be with. You know what I mean? In relationships, because I obsessed so much over like having a partner when I was younger, because you know, like all my friends in sports and stuff had boyfriends and stuff, and you know, I dated a girl in high school, and she was very, very sweet girl, but we were a secret. And so when I got into this relationship with this older woman, it like it, I thought it was the shit. I thought it was just dope. Like she's the best thing that could ever happen. She knows everything. She's older, and she used to always use it against me. Like, you young, you don't understand, you don't know. You know, so I'll just listen to whatever, you know. But I wish, like every single time where I felt where I had actually something to say, or I did stick up for myself, or I had that that ability to just walk away when something was wrong, and know that like, and it's also because I hadn't been able to fully heal from other situations and relationships, not even from being in a romantic relationship, just relationships in general. So like when someone showed me that type of love, and it wasn't real. You know what I mean? It wasn't real love. Like we all learn love in a different way. Like you know, we get loved on by our parents, but then we get loved on by our friends, and then love is different in different ways. We learn it in different shapes and forms. So like whatever idea of love that person was showing me, like I thought that that's what it was supposed to be like. So when I actually got love from another relationship, I was like, oh, that's what that's supposed to be like. You don't get bothered by me talking to you. You don't care when I tell you something like corny, and I think like you don't care when I make you something from scratch and gift it to you. I'm not corny for that, or like and like I would get put down a lot by her, and just being able to know that like none of that stuff was true about myself. You know what I mean? None of that stuff was true. Like, you filled my head with so many things, and it's very important. Like, I can't reiterate enough the frame of thoughts that I had to defeat. You don't belong here. You're a mistake. You're a loser. You're a crybaby. You're all these things, bro. Who's ever gonna love you, bro? You're so messed up in so many ways. You're adopted. You're this. You're that.
Oh wow!
You know
Everything
what I mean?
using everything against you.
Yeah, like you know what I mean. Like, how was I supposed to be loved?
And is this all this is gonna be in tragic? But is this also the themes and ideas you're exploring for the album too?
So basically, we run it back to give recognition to Carl Rogers, founder father of person centered therapy, and Natalie Rogers, who is founder of expressive therapy. Shout out to them because it's one of the things that saved me as a kid to be able to express myself, because I was also very shy and nonverbal as a kid in different times, like when I was really younger. And so in the video itself, like I'm gonna be doing like Gestalt therapy technique. Well, it's basically based on empty chair technique. So the idea is that in therapy, when you're working with the therapist, they're using that style of therapy theory. They'll have you as if like I'm talking to you.
Yeah, I was like, what is
You know
that?
what I
What's
mean?
empty chair? What is
So like, if I want to tell somebody something as if it was the person that there. So if my friend that passed away is sitting next to me, I'm gonna talk to them. I'm gonna tell them how I felt and what I wanted to say, and so basically in the video, it's projected for me to basically finally be able to say, and it's not just about the ex at this point. It's now for every single individual who has ever harmed me, put me down, made me feel like I was less than what I was supposed to be, and like deserving of. So like at first it stemmed from, oh, this person hurt me, this girl, she did this thing to me, but then it started to branch into, was it just her?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then it changed, and then another song came out of that. Then another song came, and I was able to finally get pieces of like, okay, it wasn't all just her. So Tragic just started it. It started because it was the first area that I needed to work on when I first got out of prison. I was like so wound up on this girl. You know what I mean? And the therapist's like, you need to get away from this girl. This girl is not it. I'm like, nah, man. Getting her name tatted next week.
Oh, did you do that?
Yeah.
Oh.
It's crazy. Bold. I was about it. So
Yeah.
we would be in the yard every day, right? And I had like maybe 80 days left or something like that. And every day I picked this flower. It's a Arizona sunflower. So it's like a sunflower with a red burst in the middle. So every day I pick this flower, and if you get caught being in the garden, you get a D report. You get written up for it. You're not supposed to pick no flowers. But I did every day, and I pressed it in a book and gave it to her. So when I got out, I said, I'm going to get this one tatted and it will never die.
Oh, wow.
And then within like a week, she cheated on me, and I was back in prison.
God damn.
And that's what I'm saying. So this like whole project is about just like me taking back who I am. And like even whatever pieces I can get from myself, I'm gonna try to look for those and get that out, because it's to honor everything that everybody in my lineage, ancestry that has gone through something. I want to put an end to that now. I'm the youngest in my families, both families, adopted and birth, and I want to put an end to that mental health crisis cycle in our lineage and really start to be the person who starts barking back and saying, yes, we talk about these things. And yes, we're going to do something about it, even if it hurts a little bit. Even if we got to cry, even if we got to kick and scream through it, we're going to get there, because I love you, kind of thing, you know?
That's beautiful.
And so, even though I have to do some of that spiritually, and through with people I've lost, it's so good to know that I have the opportunity to make, like, real connection and real strives at these relationships that I'm building now with, like, my mom, who's still alive, you know? And I want to make her so proud, yo. And I know she's already proud, but I want to make her even prouder, you know? She's really, you know, the only thing I have left.
Mm.
Of all of the story you gave us today, of all the people, she's
the one last person
yeah.
I have left is my mom. And she lives in Arizona. Shout out to her.
Shout out to
She's sweet.
Mama.
Sweet mama. Guess what she did, yo? She sent me some New England clam chowder in the mail from Amazon for my birthday. I was like, damn.
Hey.
I'm like,
you.
damn.
Yeah.
That's what you got me?
She fuck with you heavy.
And then she got me, I was kind of thrown off. She got me like some peach cups. I'm like, Mom, 31. She gave me these peach cups. I give these to the kids at work. You know,
You're still her
cute.
baby.
She's like, yo, it was under $20. It's a steal. I'm
Right?
like, love you for
She's gonna
that.
take care of you,
But
no matter what.
yeah, I appreciate y'all for real. Like, I'm excited for this project, and we're gonna start rolling it out
Absolutely.
in May.
I was gonna say, yeah.
May.
When can
Okay.
people expect it?
Awesome.
May we start shooting in less than 3 weeks.
Beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
So we start shooting less than 3 weeks, and we'll be rolling it out. I'm just excited because it's not even about like the numbers or anything like that. This whole project is about literally me trying to reconnect and with my inner child and just like literally let go
Absolutely.
of all of those things. And there's different phases of it. But if you really listen to that album and you don't try to focus on technicalities, but you try to focus on emotion, I'm asking the listener to be unbiased. I'm asking the listener to go deeper than just happy, sad, angry, surprised, and fearful. Like, I really want people to try to touch deeper. Like, what also does this feel like?
Right.
You know?
How could they find you on your social medias and your music?
You can find me on all social medias at FRCKLS Music. And that's me on all platforms. Or you can find me on my website, frecklesmusic.com. But I'm always available, and don't be shy, you know? Reach to me, because I cannot tell if, you know, it's okay for me to initiate sometimes, you know? I like when people reach to me.
And what's one last thing you would like to leave, like fans, audience members, viewers? What's one thing that you'd like to leave them with?
Be grateful for everything, the good, bad, and indifferent, because essentially everything gonna teach you something. And just remain patient with yourself and be forgiving.
Amazing. Love that.
Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for sharing your album. Thank you for sharing yourself. Thank you for sharing your trauma and your journey. And yeah, thank you for being you.
Appreciate y'all, like, for real. Post-traumatic growth.
Let's go.
Let's go.
All right. That's it. My name is Cricket Smith. This is
Ta-ta.
We Out, baby. Show and Tell Boston.
Come meet the family.
Thank you, Freckles.